Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. I hope you and yours are well. I'm sorry to say that not all of us are well. Our dear Eva is unwell and unable to join us tonight, but hopefully we wish her a speedy recovery, and hopefully she'll be right as rain soon. But tonight, unfortunately, we don't have her with us to help us, and we're recording this on Friday night because all the guys here are going to be down at different functions tomorrow, including Hope Over Fear in Coat Bridge, and the Independence Foundation, is it, Alan, up in Perth?
No, it's going to be in Dundee, and that's actually next week. I rechecked the
details. I'm getting mixed up with my bloody things.
No, that was me.
You mixed me up. Good. For once, I'm not guilty. But anyway, it's been a heck of a week, Phil. We'll start with this because you're with us in the Côte de Brig. But over in Geneva this week, folks, there was a big bit of stuff going on, which was the Liberation people were delivering to the UN the position of Scotland being not a colony, as being a colony and not an equal partner in the Union. And if we observed any of you, Robert Black's brilliant submission to the UN, it was excellent. Were you following things, Phil? Because the BBC, STV, and the British newspapers in Scotland were not really covering it.
Correct, and to that you can add the SNP, which we're not really covering it. I know Lloyd's got some stuff on this. So the first thing, folks, get into liberate.scot and check this out. Then go to liberate.scot/join and start making a difference. This is about unification. This is about us all being on the same side and getting behind each other and supporting every initiative for independence. And that means you oppose initiatives that are not making a difference, that are not getting us to independence, which is pretty much everything the SNP are doing these days. So Liberation Scotland presented their case for Scotland's colonial status to international delegates to the UN in Geneva. Okay. Now, marking the first time in over 300 years that Scotland's relationship with England has been formally challenged on the international stage. Now, I was fortunate enough to be invited. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I'm back in the Brig, which is great for my sister's birthday party tonight. But Sarah Salyers, Professor Alf Baird, the great Craig Murray, SSRG's Mark McNaught and David Henry, and old mucker Douglas Chapman, most of whom will be my guests in Brussels next week for the EFTA conference, were all there along with others at what was an historic event. So yesterday in Geneva, and I'm just going to quote straight from the website Liberation Scotland. Please go check it out. Please read it. Please get caught up on this, because this is a great step. It's a great first step, but we still need to win politically. What this does is set the case legally and constitutionally for Scotland's independence. So something occurred that the British state thought for over 300 years would never happen. For the first time ever, an audience of 60 international delegates heard the truth about Scotland's relationship with England and its colonial status within that state, calling itself today the United Kingdom. Knowledge is power, and the British state knows that better than anyone. That's why they bury and rewrite histories and narratives. There was never any possibility that their story of a new state created by a voluntary partnership was going to be challenged before now. And this British state thought it had successfully blocked any route for Scotland that might expose the truth and challenge it as just England, with the colony of Scotland spliced on. Again, please go to Liberate Scot and read this for yourself. But anyway, the National was the only newspaper that really covered it and were in attendance, which is great to see. And despite a few inaccuracies, such as the audience size, there are 56 chairs in that packed room, and with a few standing, the audience was 60. So, and our contentious claims, which they said, that's poor form from the National, since no real debate has taken place. It might have been simply stated as our claims, the people's claims, representatives of the people of Scotland. They give a reasonably fair picture, and I'm talking about the National here with the proceedings, particularly the account of the speech contents. What the National doesn't convey is the astonishment in the room of the true nature of the British state, and the multitude of similarities between the treatment of the Scots and that of their own colonised peoples. The African Union was in attendance, and this is an organisation that represents 55 African nation states, 53 of which, 53 out of 55, were prior colonies, largely ruled by the British and the French, but of course several other European states. Now, this wonderful group had private discussions about the countries of the Maghreb and North Africa in particular, and were delighted to receive warm expressions of support, not just from this source, but from several other delegations. You will see this event played down by the British state, if it's mentioned at all, as you pointed out, Roddy. And it's wall-to-wall agencies. They're all singing from the same song sheet, all lying to our people, all obfuscating the truth and the reality. We hear that the Scottish Daily Express described the event room with its magnificent wood marquetry provided by the monarchy of Morocco as a broom cupboard. An hour after this event by Liberation Scotland, the team had the privilege of attending a meeting where the UN verdict on genocide in Palestine was being delivered in a similar room, but of twice the size. We suppose then, Daily Express, you would call it a big broom cupboard? Perfidious Albion. Make no mistake, what Liberation Scotland took to the UN Geneva yesterday was a blow delivered to the prestige and arrogance of the Anglo-British state. It had better get used to hearing the truths unveiled to the world yesterday, because there'll be a lot more to it. And Alan, a Liberation Scotland committee member, analysed this meeting. You can read it, a true reflection of the events. Please again go to liberation.scot. Check out it for yourselves, folks. Information is power.
On mute, Roddy.
Going back to the 70s, Lloyd, of course, the SNP at that time showed some interest in doing exactly this, but then a few people said, no, it's not the way to go, and they dropped it. But now they've completely ignored it as if it's not existing.
Yeah, it's really concerning, and I think part of the reason why there's the media blackout is because the SNP, this current SNP, is saying to people, no, these are a bunch of cranks. This is a mad idea, but it has no legitimacy, and that in itself is an indictment of the intellectual powers that's currently running the Scottish National Party, because back in the 70s, the initiative to go to the United Nations, initially on the basis of exploring whether or not that was a route that would assist us to achieve our independence, which is quite different from what Salvo Liberation have done. They did an awful lot of work, academic work, investigation, before they then prepared and took a case. And effectively, they're maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 steps further forward than the SNP were in the mid-1970s. Now, for me, this is a fantastic, absolutely fantastic initiative. I could not praise these people highly enough for one simple reason. They are expressing what we talk about every week, week in, week out, the necessity for the examination of every possible route to independence and the absolute importance of unity on that path to independence. This is a message to Alapa. This is a message to the Scottish Socialist Party. This is a message to the Scottish Green Party. It's a message to the Scottish National Party, the Independence for Scotland Party, Liberate Scotland, and Sovereignty. All of those that seek our national freedom should be paying attention and putting shoulders to the same wheels as the Salvo and Liberation people are. I mean, for any of us that have read the work of particularly Professor Alf Baird or followed the career of Robert Black KC, we know here that we have people of standing, of merit, and of integrity who are throwing their weight behind this initiative. And it's incumbent on all of us to get right behind it. And as we all know, This is just part of the tapestry that leads us to liberation, that leads us to freedom and independence. An electoral event eventually will be absolutely vital in completing that road. But any work by anyone that helps along the way, that helps to build the case, and more importantly, put the case to people in very simple terms. Now, anyone who goes to Ireland, you speak to any Irish person from the age of 10 upwards and ask them if Ireland was a colony. They'll look at you like you're mad, because of course Ireland was a colony. And this is something which is permeating into people's minds here in Scotland, and far more people these days, certainly than from when I first joined the Scottish National Party, would define Scotland as being in a colonial relationship with the UK government in Westminster. Now, if Ireland and the good people of Ireland who have been free of the United Kingdom, or in part free of the United Kingdom since 1922, if they understand that the relationship between the UK government and Ireland was a colonial relationship, how can we possibly think to ourselves that we are not in exactly the same situation? Mm-hmm. Because we are in the same situation as Ireland prior to its independence. And if it was a colonial situation then, it's a colonial situation for us right now. And the more and more our people can get that, begin to understand and articulate that idea, the closer independence comes, for obvious reasons, because we don't start talking about things like, oh, we need to pool and share. Why should we be pooling and sharing when in actual fact we've had stuff pulled away from us and shared to lots of other people for 300 years since the Union? Why is it that we have the levels of deprivation in our country that our natural resources would say to us are, it's an absurdity. We have the deprivation on the level that we have when we have the natural resources that we have. That is because they're taken from us. I believe there's the figure, I think, comes from Robin McAlpine today, that the so-called growth agenda that has been in place, supposedly in place, since the creation of the Scottish Parliament in 1999, has taken 277 billion pounds out of this country. What could we have done with 277 billion pounds between 1999 and 2025? Would we be in the circumstances that we're in, with the levels of deprivation, the levels of homelessness, the lack of infrastructure? No, we wouldn't. So, cut a long story short, we have to get behind what Salvo Liberation are doing. We have to be cheered by the fact that we've got representatives in Geneva speaking to the representatives of the United Nations, of the nations of the United Nations, and whose arguments are being accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in the cup not so long ago with some senior SNP people who all guffawed at the very thought of Scotland being a colony. It offended their view of themselves, I think. But it is, and Robert Black, case team, put it beautifully. He explained in simple terms, nothing changed for England, everything changed for Scotland. When they said that it was over, England didn't change. They didn't change the speaker. There wasn't a general election. None of the institutions of England changed. Nothing changed except 45 Scots came. And that famous phrase, which you've quoted so many times, Phil, we have, caught them close and that we've caught the Scots closer something, because nothing changed, but everything changed for Scotland. Our Parliament went, and they've even with the Supreme Court, where they have the 3 English judges sit to 2 Scots judges, so we're outvoted there as well. Alan, you have been involved with Salvo Liberation more than any of the rest of us. You must be excited about this event this week.
It's brilliant. I mean, we have now got our foot firmly on the first step of the ladder for international campaign, because this independence, we all know, is a 2-pronged approach. There's the international and there is the political at home. And that is what we've got to always remember, that it's a 2-pronged approach. One won't do it without the other. So it is brilliant that we are getting to this stage. And I mean, is it any surprising that the SNP aren't recognising this or recognise that we are a colony? I mean, which Vichy actually accepts that their overlord is wrong? I mean, they have to bow the knee every single time. And unfortunately, the SNP government are acting like a Vichy Parliament. They are not doing the interests of Scotland. They are doing Westminster's bidding. I mean, there is, I mean, just one thing I would like to pick up on, because there's a number of people, including unionists especially, who have been saying that if Scotland declared UDI, it'd just be like Kosovo. That is total and utter nonsense, because they are two different scenarios. Kosovo gained its independence through violent conflict, ethnic cleansing, NATO bombing, and years of UN administration. Scotland is going forward very peacefully. We are taking our case to the United Nations. And I've got to say, I mean, Phil mentioned a few people at Salvo and Liberation Scotland. I would like to congratulate every single member of that organisation, because without your support, we would not be anywhere near where we are now. But I mean, as I said, Kosovo's independence was not following international law. We are, because Scotland's independence will be delivered by the ballot box, not the bullet.
Hopefully. We could do that. But there's so many reasons. Another reason why I'm very sorry that Eva's not here for, would be anyway, but was this week, Phil, was, I think, a shame. I mentioned there earlier about Scots law, which is formed from Roman law. And I would love Eva to go on about, whereas English law is jurisprudence. There's a big difference, and I'm sure the legal people watching will pull me up for that, but that's the fact. But this week, it was decided by the Scottish Government to get rid of the one thing, you know, a lot of us are so proud of this. I mean, I'm not a legal eagle, but I always felt better, you know, we've got the not proven. I don't know, they want rid of it. But why, and why do it now? It's wrong.
Yes,
You're on mute, mate.
Yes, it's not only wrong. It's again, the SNP think they know better. They think they know better than teachers. They think they know better than the medical profession. They think they know better than the legal profession. And it's just, at least the SNP shambolic leadership and government and policies continue to be disastrous. What they're about is scorecards. They want to present the illusion of success, which means they want more prosecutions. Some of the legal moves they've made in the past and some of the legislation they've put in place to increase the number of individuals convicted of rape or sexual offences are wrong. They're just fundamentally wrong. Now, we all want to catch more of these ball bags, but we have to have a civilised society with a fair legal system, and the Scots were rightly proud of it. What have they done again? Well, guys, go to the Law Society and listen to what they said. The headline in the Law Society on the 18th of March in 2022. This is way back when it was first looked at. This is what I want. This is when I found the best summary of it. It said removal of the not proven verdict risks an increase in miscarriages of justice. The Law Society of Scotland has stated its opposition to plans to abolish the not proven verdict in Scottish criminal cases, arguing that the change risks an increase in miscarriages of justice. Now, this is the professional body for Scottish solicitors. They also said that the focus on moving away from the system from the three verdicts was irresponsible at a time when the justice system remains in disarray due to court backlogs, chronic underfunding of the legal aid system. So responding to the Scottish Government's consultation, and now we are 3 years down the line and they're going to do it, on the not proven verdict and related justice reforms consultation, the Law Society of Scotland argues that the current approach and treatment of complainers in sexual offences cases in Scotland is unacceptable and in need of urgent address. This is about virtue signalling. This is about the SNP doing what they do best, lying and making a mess of things. Now, the Law Society welcomes work currently underway to promote trauma-informed advocacy and an increased understanding that there is not one uniform and authentic reaction to sexual crime. Nothing wrong with that, it's sensible. But this specialised targeted work, it claims, will be more effective in addressing the sensitive issues in sexual offence cases than removing the not proven verdict, which would impact all cases across the whole of the criminal justice system. So this is the president of the Law Society of Scotland at the time, Ken Darling, stated, "It is in the interests of every citizen that we have a fair, just and open criminal justice system for all those involved. Any systematic change must be justified, proportionate and implemented with great care. The not proven verdict has been an important part of our criminal justice system for centuries, and its wholesale removal cannot be justified." Now, it goes on, and you get into the details that Ken Darling, he says, we're facing backlogs. He summarised by saying, we're facing backlogs that may take years to resolve. The capacity of the profession has been profoundly impacted, and there is a crisis in defence provision, with increasing demands placed on a sector that has already declined by more than a quarter in the decade prior to the pandemic. And look, we could go on and on about this, but bottom line is Scottish Government interfering in stuff they know nothing, little or nothing about, think they know better, virtue signalling. These are morons. And I would go further. I would suggest that all of these BAMPOT counter to logic and common sense provisions that they're making and policies they're putting in place are implemented at the behest of the British government to not only sow dissatisfaction, but also to show that the Scottish government after Alex Salmond is a shambles, a waste of time, full of puppets who will do what they're told, and what they're being told is to continue to disassemble and deconstruct the independence movement, and they're doing a good job at it, I have to say. It's a disgrace.
We mentioned last week, I mean, Anas Sawar, whose best pal, one of his best pals is Mandelson. He got pulled up and he made a comment last week in Holyrood to John Swinney about, the state of crime, and it was terrible. John puffed out his chest, honest John, to say, in Scotland, we've got more people in prison than any other Western democracy. John was proud of that. And now here we have a situation, as Phil has alluded to, Lloyd, we're taking away the not proven, could end up with more people in prison. We've had Eve on here, and I had a special programme with Ian Moyer and Roddy Dunlop, KC, about legal aid, where people are struggling to get proper defence. The prisons are bursting at the seams, and now doing this could add further pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, but again, this is another one of these initiatives which there's an absolute failure to recognise the possibilities of the likelihood of unintended consequences. Now, this whole affair was started by a campaign initiated by Rape Crisis Scotland under the tutelage of Sandy Brindley, the famous Sandy Brindley, who is still in position, which was to increase the number of convictions in rape trials. Now, the basis of law is not to increase or decrease convictions. The purpose of law is justice. The purpose of law, indeed, the purpose of law is to make sure that both the offended and the offender are given an equal platform, and guilt or innocence is proven or not proven through a process in a court. If you set out to create targets for conviction, not targets for arrest, not targets for prosecution, but targets for convictions, then effectively you've skewed the system to begin with. And no one would be in the least surprised if there is not an attempt to challenge this in the Supreme Court. But that aside, 160 amendments to this bill, which has been in train, as Phil pointed out, since 2021, that'd have been good. 2021, it's been on the build-up to this, but yesterday afternoon, or rather Thursday afternoon, 160 amendments to the bill were dealt with in a 3-hour period. That can't be done with proper examination. That cannot be done with proper scrutiny. It's not possible. I know, I was a member of the Parliament, and particularly the way the Scottish Parliament operates, 160 amendments would have been grouped in groups of 10 to 15 at a time. And people get 3 minutes to speak. But when you are in a situation like that, The minds are already made up. You know when you go in at 10 o'clock in the morning what the outcome is going to be when everybody presses their button at 5 o'clock. You know exactly what's going to happen because the whips have told you. Now, you have to look at this from another point of view. Now, anecdotally, there is evidence that certain members, particularly of the Scottish National Party and the Scottish Green Party, over this 5-year period, or particularly the past 3 years, have suggested that a certain previous First Minister would have been convicted if he had not been found not proven on one of the cases. And that in itself is a reason to support the bill that they supported yesterday. Now, the sources I have tell me that that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And that to some degree that this whole thing was being driven not for the other elements of it, which are support for victims of crime, and some of them absolutely, tremendous initiatives, like for instance, the ability of those victims in a convicted rape case being able to gain, or not even in a conviction of but in a rape case, being able to get access to the full transcript of the court and the case, which at the moment we're not allowed to. You have to pay for it, and it can be, and you can be prevented from getting it. Now, the corollary to that is this: why did they vote only to give transcripts of court cases to people in sexual assault and rape cases, but not in all other cases? If you are someone who is convicted of murder and sent to prison for 25 years, you are not allowed to have a transcript of the case which convicted you to prepare your appeal if you're going to appeal. As Phil said, the likelihood, and the Law Society that Phil quoted, the likelihood of more miscarriages of justice is enormous with what they did yesterday. But let's get back to first principles here. Do we genuinely believe, given that we have, we have great legal minds in this country, and I have to say, when in the first Parliament between 1999 and 2003, whenever there was a suggestion of tinkering in any way with the Scots legal system, the first thing that happened was we brought in the big legal minds who rapidly showed us that it was way beyond our ken and we should be quiet. Not because of their own desire to protect their own circumstances, but because it's a really, really, really important and detailed area of expertise. It is not for people who were elected to the Scottish Parliament, who before that had been a special advisor to a minister or a parliamentary assistant to an MSP, or were straight out of a politics degree at university. It is not. It is beyond their ken to deal with this stuff. Now, what has happened is, like with the GRRB bill, this is activists pressuring particular elements of government, and we know that Nicola Sturgeon's government was easily pressured. And funnily enough, if you actually look of the list of advisors on the committee that advised Angela Constance, the social worker who's in charge of justice, not Angela Constance, ex-lawyer, like Rosanna Cunningham was, for instance, we have a social worker who's the Justice Minister and is making decisions by a committee crammed with exactly the same people who advised on the gender recognition reform bill that fell in the Supreme Court because it's nonsense law. Now, if you have a circumstance where you elect parliamentarians who believe that they have greater expertise and greater understanding than the legal minds in this country, remembering, as you pointed out, Roddy, we have a unique legal system, absolutely unique in the world and admired across the world. As a result, our experts are the experts on our law. They're not experts in law overall, they are experts in Scots law. And it's been said by many, many people, for 300 years this has worked. You know, we have systems in place that work. Our level of miscarriages of justice is considerably lower than nearly every other jurisdiction in Europe, but very specifically, considerably lower than in the jurisdictions of England and Wales or Northern Ireland. And that's because we have a system that has been proven in its exercise, not in its theology or ideology. It's proven on a day and daily basis in our courts. It is a ridiculous situation to have where people with no expertise chose to ignore completely the most important legal minds in our country who said, stop, hold on. Much of what you have in your bill, yes, go ahead and do it. But on the issue of not proven, show us where it doesn't work. The suggestion that some people were influenced to vote in a particular way to remove not proven because of their animus towards the previous First Minister, if that is the case, then our politics is broken beyond repair. And I would suggest, as I've said before, any SNP member who voted to remove not proven and any SNP member who voted in favour of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill is not fit for office, either as a minister or as a member of the Scottish Parliament. And it is incumbent on us to remove these people at the earliest opportunity, to shun them and remove them from our politics in May of 2026 for the benefit of the future of our country.
Well said. It reminds me, you're talking there about, the motivation for them doing this was the Alex Salmond. And we've seen that even after his death, that the Sturgeon and others have had a go at him. And it wouldn't surprise me if they were trying to imitate what happened to Oliver Cromwell in 1661, 2 years after he was buried. The Charles II came in, dug him up, had a mock trial, beheaded him, put his head on a spike at Westminster Hall, and reburied his body in a grave. It seems that they want to rerun the race with the trial with Alex Salmond. Shame upon them. Shame upon them. Alan, not proven. It's ridiculous. It's proven fact, but we shouldn't get rid of not proven.
Well, it comes back down to being colonised again. Because what do they do when you colonise you? They try to change your legal system, they try to change your language, and they try to change your culture. Scotland is based on a legal system of verdicts of not proven or proven. Because after all, you are innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So if they think that removing the not proven verdict will bring in more guilty verdicts, then that shouldn't be happening. Because if you were going to vote not proven, that means you have a doubt. Therefore, that person cannot be convicted as guilty. But, I mean, it's not unusual for the SNP, though. I mean, they like to tinker around the system. They don't actually look at the real problems. And one of the real problems, and it happened in the Alex Salmond case, it's happened in the Luke Mitchell case, for example, where important evidence was forbidden from being heard by the jury. That has led to Luke Mitchell spending many years as an innocent person in a prison. That's where the SNP should be looking at. They should be looking to clean up the system to make sure that innocent people are not going to jail. And the other thing they could be doing is making sure the police are doing their job properly and investigating real crime instead of arresting people for wearing T-shirts or making comments on the internet. Maybe then we will get real criminals off the street. But until the SNP stop tinkering about and stop fanning about, we will have our legal system will continuously go down because we used to be the envy of the world. Now we're turned into a laughing stock.
Yeah. What they should also be looking at is probably the perjury laws and rules for all the perjurers that were, again, in the Alex Salmond case, and the ones who were given protection, who were found to be lying. And if you want to sue me, sue me. Because what they are wanting to do is, because they love the law, don't they? They're also, Phil, announced they're going to challenge again for Women's Scotland in the bid to remove the guidance that allows male prisoners to go into female prisons, and for the guidance to teach, allowing for example, the drag artists into primary schools and the guidance given to schools on things, sex education. Why won't they just accept the law?
They think they know better, which it's another example, as if we needed another example. They've done it every single time. And this is obviously the campaign group for Women Scotland. Now, I look to the legal advisor company, Irwin Mitchell, on this to get some insight, because obviously, sadly, we're not with our expert, resident expert, Eva, who's very, very good on this, who's excellent on this, and who speaks the truth. Well, it's Eva, so she does speak the truth. But this is about single-sex spaces. Campaign group set their sight on schools guidance. So what are they doing? The SNP are ignoring and playing around with the rules and bending the rules. So the Campaign Group for Women Scotland, FWS, has lodged an application in the Scottish Court of Session to quash government guidance that allows individuals to access school and prison facilities based on gender identity rather than biological sex. I mean, this goes way back. You know, we go back on this. I mean, the Equality Act's 2010, okay? And then with the recent decision on that sex, not gender, is how what appears on a certified certificate. But the FWS argues that the Scottish Government school and prison guidance is incompatible with both the Supreme Court's interpretation and existing statutory requirements. And I know whose money my money's on. It's an FWS, because at least, as we've said earlier, the Scottish Government have been nothing but inconsistent on this. It's appalling. They're just wrong again and again and again. And they want us to back them as if they're going to give us independence. They're destroying the independence movement. They're destroying the credibility of Scotland. It's embarrassing. But for me, I'm with these guys. In the context of schools, they're challenging policies that permit pupils to use toilets, changing rooms, and participate in PE based on their gender identity. Now, the Court of Session has already ruled that Scottish schools must provide single-sex toilets for their male and female pupils, following action taken by parents whose children only had access to gender-neutral toilets. As a result, Edinburgh City Council, Lloyd's part of the world, has begun removing gender-neutral toilets from schools, where they were the only option, citing legal obligations under the School Premises Regulations Scotland Act 1967. It's about time more followed, and it's about time we got rid of everybody in the SNP. I echo exactly what Lloyd has said. We cannot vote for SNP, and I completely disagree with what Alapa are putting forward. You're cowardly. I'm sorry, the leadership of Alapa, you should have more courage. You're denying the rights of over 50% of the population of Scotland, and all of us human beings who stand by the rights of women and girls. I cannot and will not vote for the SNP. They're wrong-uns, they get everything wrong, they're breaking the law, and we should remove them. They need to be hurt. We need to destroy the SNP so we can take control of the independence movement and wrestle it from the grip of those who control the SNP and who would keep us on our knees.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, apart from anything else, Lloyd, I believe that the figure's now about £320,000 of government taxpayers' money has been spent defending this already. They're going to spend probably the same again. God knows how much they're spending on Sandy Peggy and how much the compensation claims are going to be. This is money that could be going into schools to improve education. How's that for an idea? Instead of worrying about gender-neutral toilets, let's improve the education. Let's pay teachers more, helpers more. It's ridiculous.
It is absolutely absurd, Roddy. I mean, that's just straightforward. But this, in some ways, what For Women Scotland are doing is actually going to protect local authorities from getting taken to court. Because as Phil said, here in Edinburgh, the City Council, once the Supreme Court made its ruling on the Equality Act, they moved very quickly on the basis of they were scared stiff that they were going to end up finding themselves in court being effectively sued by the parents of children who could not access single-sex toilets in the many schools in Edinburgh. So they shifted very quickly, recognising that down the track they could be in big financial difficulty. The problem is that a lot of the captured councils, like Glasgow City Council, are not making that shift. They're hiding behind the same Scottish Government drivel of we have to wait until we've improved the guidance and handed out the guidance. No, the guidance is the Equality Act. The guidance is the judgment of the Supreme Court. End of. There's no guidance required. It's very, very plain, simple, and straightforward. The loss of the use of legal machinations to hold off decisions that you know are going to be you're going to be forced into making is an absurdity in itself. But it also is an expression of, unfortunately, the type of government, the type of politicians we have, which is we are right and you are wrong, and we don't care. Even when the Supreme Court or the Court of Session says something, we will defend our ideology in face of that. Now, if that was an ideology that had any basis in reality or indeed any popular support, for instance, say if they introduced universal income for everybody in the country, that might have popular support. It might be found to be illegal, but standing by that principle would be quite good. But it shows you the depth to which the ideology that allowed the Gender Recognition Reform Bill to pass in our Parliament, with a majority from all political parties in that Parliament, how entrenched that has become at local government and in government level. Because as I said earlier when we were discussing the not proven verdict, pretty much the largest number of people who gave advice on the not proven verdict were exactly the same people on the same government, or a slightly differently named Scottish Government committee that gave us the GRRB. Now, these people seem to be absolutely and utterly incapable of admitting that they've got something wrong, that they know something that the rest of us, that we're all wrong and they are right, and they will continue to challenge and challenge and challenge. And if it wasn't for the actions taken by For Women Scotland, where would we be? Who would have challenged us? Where would the challenge have come from? And to echo another thing that Phil said, any political party that is prepared to trash the rights, effectively, of 52% of the population, women and girls in Scotland, at next year's election by trying to pretend that the GRRB bill, the not proven bill, all these ridiculous cases that are wasting money that could be put into frontline services, that, we have to all forget that on May the 6th next year. Who do they think they are? I mean, genuinely, in some ways, what Phil said about, the destruction of the SNP or any political party, sometimes that has to happen to save the institution. Because in actual fact, at the moment, those that would say close down the Scottish Parliament, there's more evidence on their side to say, given the past 10 years, not prior to that, but the past 10 years, there's more evidence on their side that says that might be the smart thing to do than there is evidence to say, no, that would be a terrible thing to do. And at whose door does that lie? It lies very firmly at the door of the current Scottish Government, which is a Scottish National Party government. I can't believe I'm sitting here saying this in 2025, when one of the greatest days of my life was the day I took the oath in the Scottish Parliament in 1999, believing firmly at that particular time that given 25 years, we would have advanced and we would be talking about who's going to unfurl the saltire outside the United Nations building in New York. Not that we would be talking about the incompetence, stupidity, self-centeredness of a Scottish National Party government that has completely lost touch with the people of our country. The vanguard party of the National Movement of Liberation pays no attention whatsoever to 52% of the population that is trying to ride roughshod over their rights, that puts them in danger. This is a nightmare scenario we're living in here, and we need to be more honest about it. And if it next year, in May 2026, we do see the demise of the Scottish National Party, I, for one, analysing it at this particular moment, I cannot see that as being detrimental to the future of my country.
No, I agree. Alan, for Women Scotland, God bless them for fighting this fight for all of people in Scotland, all of us with mothers and daughters and sisters and wives and girlfriends. Doff my hat to them, but it shouldn't be necessary.
This should have been put to bed a long time ago. And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm getting sick and tired of being forced to pay for legal action that I do not support. Now, I certainly will be contributing to For Women Scotland voluntarily to fight this case, but the Scottish Government should not be taking this case forward. They should be dropping it and abiding by the law. How do they expect their citizens to abide by the law when they're prepared to break it themselves? But some people may say that Liberate Scotland, you talk about unity, but you're attacking the SNP. Well, sometimes the wall that is keeping you enclosed is in your own back garden, and you've got to break it down. There is no point, and it's certainly not unity, to continuously support an organisation that has turned its back on the people. We have to waken up and start voting for people that you know what they stand for. And at this present time, I cannot, for the life of me, think of any SNP candidate on a constituency that I would vote for, because they do not put independence first. But coming back to the For Women Scotland thing, when I was a councillor, and if I voted for anything that would cost the council money illegally, then I would be surcharged. So now it's time for the Scottish Parliament, I think, to adopt the same strategy. That if you vote for something that costs the taxpayers money, you should be surcharged and be forced to pay every single penny back. Maybe that would then focus some minds in that Parliament, and their little woke coup will be over. Because if they're going to be financially liable, they're not going to be listening to the nutters.
No, absolutely. But this was a week as well of defections, Phil. Well, a lot of defections going to Tories and Labour, going to the Reform Party. And one of them is Danny Kruger. Yeah, neither had I. But he switched now. This was him just a couple of weeks ago. Now, they're all desperate to get their noses in the trough. And it's not about, well, I think they look a better party for the nation. It's all about them keeping their beaks dipped in the trough. Because here's Danny Kruger, not so long ago.
Let me finish on reform, because they're not here anymore. But there you go. I mean, they've got a rather amusing amendment to the motion, which simply replaces the words Conservative Party with the words reform. So I mean, I honour that. They're kind of piggybacking somewhat on our good work in desperate search to be relevant.
And then, of course, there's the Reform Party, Madam Deputy Speaker, sadly absent today. Now, I do quite like the Reform Party, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I agree with them on lots of things. But there is a problem. There is a problem. There is a problem. The problem is this. They would spend money like drunken sailors. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am worried. In fact, I see what's happening. I'm very worried about it. They're going to end up in an electoral pact with the Liberal Democrats.
I say this to everyone. If you've had enough of waiting for politicians to fix our problems, if you don't trust Westminster, well, join the club. Literally, join us. Join Reform UK and see what you can do for your country.
The hypocrisy. Answer that, Phil. What do you make of that?
I think Freddie Kruger would be a more appropriate fit. This guy flip-flopping, snout in the trough, he's a shyster. So actually he's perfect for Westminster and Nigel Farage. And I know the Financial Times picked this one up, and this is MP Danny Kruger. He's become the first sitting Tory MP to defect to reform, okay? And he's arguing now, after all of that the flame of conservatism is passing from the Tories to Nigel Farage's insurgent party. This now means that Reform has 5 MPs in Parliament, which, and it's a blow to the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi, have you heard of anything? Any's heard of what this woman's done? She's a nasty little piece of work. But the fact that, you know what, the Conservatives are good at putting nasty little pieces of work in senior positions in the Conservative Party. Long may it continue. Just watch your watch before Kemi jumps over as well. But anyway, their party conference is next month. Let's see what happens there. Kruger's East Wiltshire, right? And he said at a press conference that he was leaving the Tories to become Reform's head of preparing for government, adding that his old party was over. No, your old party's called New Labour, mate. It's the same, different cheek, same arse. And we're about to see a creature with 3 cheeks and 2 arseholes. So maybe there'll be a share leadership. I don't know. So Keir Starmer described Farage's party as the real opposition. He's lining it up in Britain in spite of its small representation in Parliament. And notice that I think they'd before this, they'd single percentage, very small percentage, 3% or something of MPs, and yet we're getting 25% of press coverage. That's the Britain we face. That's the reality. That's what we're up against. And with Reform leading UK opinion polls since the spring, Kruger's defection will give further credibility to this shyster party, as will his withering, departing words aimed at the Tories. The rule of our time in office was failure, Kruger said at the press conference. Well, that can equally be applied to Labour, and it will equally be applied to Reform when they get in power. We need out independence, nothing less, before Freddie Kruger and his mates take over.
Indeed. And I mean, there's one point where they're saying, Lloyd, you know, they're bringing in the best they can find, and the highly intelligent ones. And the same day as they announced Nadine Dorris, you know. Well, but here's just some of the ones. This is just some of the ones from the Conservative Party who have jumped ship. They're going over there.
I like the singing one. She's great.
Yeah.
Which one's she again? She's mental.
Aye, she's got the sparkly suit. We're trying to get one of them for Eva for when Liberate Scotland.
No, it just takes the politics is just show business for ugly people to a completely new level. You know, it's politics is showbiz for not just ugly but terminally stupid folk.
The intelligence of these people is unbelievable. I mean, this is the kind of thing we've got to be careful, because they really hit the nail on the head here, Lloyd. A Reform council blames mass immigration for low Leicestershire water reservoir levels. I mean, what can I say? What can you say to that?
Well, I mean, I just love this. What they're doing. The immigrants are stealing the water, putting it in bottles and selling it in the shops.
Maybe they drink more water than your Anglo-Saxon, types.
You know, if you were the leader of the Scottish National Party, you would be loving this. If you were someone who was committed to independence, you'd be absolutely loving this, because in those 2 stories that we've covered, the Kruger defection and the immigrants are nicking our water. I mean, I'd have a press conference tomorrow saying, we got to get out of here. There is the evidence that these people are insane, and we're giving them all our natural resources. This is just absurd. It's time to go.
Yep.
But we're not getting that. We're not getting that. But I mean, the media, to some degree, and even us talking about it, is what's bigging up the Reform Party. But what is also bigging it up is the fact that no one is genuinely criticising the fact that they tell lies, the fact that they are out and out bigots on a number of different levels, including being particularly anti-Scottish, anti-Welsh, and anti-Irish. And that's before we go into the other areas. Now, if you're the leader, I mean, Plaid Cymru have come out very, very, very clearly and said, Reform are an anti-Welsh party. They don't call them broad brush racists. They call them an anti-Welsh party. Sinn Féin have called them an anti-Irish party. When are the Scottish National Party going to tell the truth about Reform being an anti-Scottish party? You know? Or is being anti-Scottish not racist in the minds of the current Scottish National Party leadership? You know, these are the things I worry about. Also, let's get his name right, you know? In the Scottish Parliament, we had David Mundell, who at school was known as David Mundell. His son, Oliver Mundell, is a current member of the Scottish Parliament. Nigel Farage is Nigel Farage. That's his name. His name is Farage. That's what he was called at school. Let's start calling him by his real name instead of giving him this exotic European-styled title, which he does not. Well, no, actually, he's got more right to it, seeing as how his girlfriend's French and he spends most of his time at his holiday home in Brittany. We need to tell the truth about these people, but we also need to be honest enough to stand up and say the only way to prevent at this moment and any potential in the future of there being an extreme right-wing government further to the right than even Thatcher's government was, the only way we avoid that is by being independent. Otherwise, we are dependent, entirely dependent. And when or if there becomes a coalition right-wing government in England in the next 5 years or so, be that a coalition of Reform and Labour or Reform and Conservative or whatever mutation turns up, the first people that will suffer during the period of that government are the people of our country, because England is broke. England is broke, people. It has no money. It has nothing to sell the world. It has nothing to gain it economic power other than the buying and the selling of money and utilities. The only part of this country, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, that has natural resources that are tradable in the international market is our country, Scotland. And it is time that we applied those natural resources to address the issues and the future requirements of our people and stop providing it for the Spibs of the City of London and the Nigel Farages of this world.
Correct. I'm all for giving them their proper names, and as of now, he will be known as Keir Fannyboz, because that's who he is. That's his new name, his real name. Alan, Reform, nutters.
Total nutters. I mean, Danny Kruger, Phil's right, the brother of Freddie, only this is Nightmare on Reform Street. I mean, this nutter that's on about the water, the immigrants are responsible for the water. I mean, what does he want? What does he expect? Are they coming up here with water tanks on their back, rowing their boats over just to steal our water? Jesus.
Well,
if you want to know what's
water, didn't they?
I mean, if you want to know what's wrong with your water supply, speak to your water companies that are ripping off their people because they're not fixing the leaking pipes, and that's where your water is going. They're charging people extortionate rates because your country, England, has privatised the water. That's where your problem is. And I mean, the biggest thing about reform is they keep saying, going back to even Brexit, they keep saying, we want to take our country back. Please do. Your country's England. We will support you 100%. We will come down to England and campaign with you. But be honest, Britain is not your country. England is your country. And it's about time you started taking pride in that and allow Scots to make their own decision and get you out of our hair. And Lloyd is correct about the anti-Scottish party, because we did that with the Tories, remember? We called them anti-Scottish party. And for years and years, they went without a single member of parliament in Scotland under Thatcher. And then, what was his name? Major. Yep. So, I mean, it is all about words and getting through to the people what these actors really are, because they're not who they say they are. They're playing a game. So let's call them out on it.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, Phil, just last thing on reform, on SNP. I felt Lloyd asked the question, why isn't the SNP doing something about it? Well, they have been, actually, where they are actually, if I can get this damn thing up, they're actually promoting more to vote for reform than they are for Liberate Scotland or Alapa or anyone else. They're promoting that.
It just beggars belief. You cannot state how badly the Scottish government is being run just now and expect that anyone who hasn't been paying attention that knew SNP under Salmond, you wouldn't expect to be believed. It is a 180-degree turn about since Nicola was presented with the golden keys of a free Scotland and promptly sold them. She sold them, and her little cabal continues to run it. And I would see Angus Robertson, John Swinney, Nicola, all of the current cabinet, everyone who's served it, all the leadership, and anyone who lacks the courage to stand up for what is clearly not just bad for Scotland. This is catastrophic for Scotland. We're about to face increase. There's 1 in 4 children in poverty. That's heading towards 1 in 3. And it's your fault, you politicians who stand by and allow this to happen and don't stand up for the rights of the people of Scotland, because all you're interested in, you spineless weasels, you chinless, spineless, useless wastes of space. Each one of you, honestly, stay out my way. I mean, I'm not threatening violence, but I will tell you exactly what I think of you, and I will do it publicly and happily do it, because you don't deserve a comfortable life. You deserve some sand in your Vaseline. And given the way they grease themselves up, that's going to hurt. But no, do you know what? To hell with them. To hell with them. I don't give a damn about you, because you don't give a damn about the Scottish people. And it sickens me, the fact that we're going to set. I've got visitors up for my sister's party, and I took one of my cousins who went down south, and she's got an English accent, lovely English boyfriend from Nottingham, good guy, builder. And I took him round. I was doing some running about the day, and I looked. Even the town hall in Coatbridge is boarded up. The shops, the streets, the litter, the pavements, the roads, the people wandering about, the amount of invalid sticks, the flats coming down, the graffiti, the despair, the lack of jobs, the poverty, the drugs. It's your fault, you politicians who have done nothing to further the cause of independence, because that is our only way out for the people of Scotland. And hell mend you. You will not be allowed to walk away from this. You will face this, but they don't care. As long as they're a little nest egg and they're getting their money, they don't give a damn. That's why we need to destroy the SNP now.
They're all plaguing all their houses. But last week we were talking about the demise of Ian Murray. And this shows you the media, the press and everything else. It's a wee club and they all play among themselves and they all pretend things. But this one had me howling, Lloyd, absolutely howling. The best Scot at Westminster, who was fired last week, Ian Murray. I mean, the Holyrood magazine. What? You don't laugh, you've got to credit. Morons, the lot of them.
Well, it gets passed from one party to the next. I mean, it was Stephen Flynn last year. You know, I mean, when these awards started just after the Parliament was formed in 1999, and there was a kind of rule that first year Labour got it, second year Liberals got it, third year the Tories got it, fourth year the SNP got it, fifth year Robin Harper from the Green Party got it. I mean, it's all self-congratulatory nonsense. I mean, that's the fact of it. I mean, I think Jackie Bailey won Parliamentarian of the Year for the Scottish Parliament. I mean, in some ways, I don't know if you remember this, but one year when they had the Holyrood Parliamentarian Awards. Still at the same place at Prestonfield House Hotel, a certain Michael Watson, or Lord Watson, decided to burn the hotel down in the middle of the night. I mean, maybe it could be said, as it's often said of of Guy Fawkes, that maybe Mike Lord Watson actually was the only man who ever entered Prestonfield House Hotel with good intentions.
Honest.
Indeed, honest intentions. Even I think even amongst the silly politicians love it. I mean, every time you see, especially when they're interviewed from home, not at their office, but from home on STV or BBC, those that have ever received any of these awards, the awards will be on the mantelpiece behind them or on the bookshelf behind them, and they all think that they mean something. When in reality, the only people that know about them are the 129 members of the Scottish Parliament, the 50 members of the Scottish Press Corps, and maybe the parliamentary security and the odd members of their own political branch. You know, the relevance of all of this is negligible. It's about keeping Holyrood Magazine going. Actually, you know, in the time of the demise of news and political discussion coming in a paper form, this is about keeping them going. I mean, it was interesting to see who this year it was supported by Shiva's brothers. It's about keeping the bubble going. That's all it is. But it's comical. I mean, it is absolutely comical that we have such a tiny pool of people that you get sacked, you get reinstated, then you get an award. And it all happens in 10 days. It's class. It really is. It's class.
It's like he's now a poor man's Peter Mandelson. But I would like to just announce that the Through a Scottish Prism Award for Interviewer of the Year has been awarded to me. And it's an award that I'll be getting annually. I think it's a good idea. What do you think? Yeah, it's a good idea, Alan.
Well, how patronising is it for to have an award for the best Scot in Westminster? I mean, what is it? Is it a derriere with a big kiss mark on it? Because that's what he does. He kisses the backside of his leader. He doesn't represent Scotland down there. He represents a Labour Party, the English Labour Party at that. But I've been talking about Scots down in Westminster. For 15 minutes this week, I had an honest member of Parliament. Because my MP, Chris Law, put up a tweet saying that whoever shared a sandwich with Trump is a genocide supporter. Then 15 minutes later, somebody said, your boss was there, boy.
And he took the tweet down.
And that tweet disappeared quicker than Paul Daniels.
Correct. I was going to mention that, but the clock's been beaten is because Mr. Law blocked me. I've never had a conversation with the man, but he blocked me. But someone sent me that wee tweet of his, which was I found quite amusing. He had quickly changed his mind. But also this week we had Phil in town. The President of the United States of America was down there, and there was this banquet, as was mentioned there by Alan, and there were certain people weren't about, like Farage wasn't allowed in because his Starmer wouldn't invite him, although and Trump didn't allow Khan in, and so the British, of course, trying to sook up to President Trump, who we know he's a bit of a ladies' man. But I thought it was really a wee bit out of hand when they were actually pimping the future Queen of England. I mean, look, what does that picture tell you? She's looking very, what did you just say? My room. I mean, what is he saying? This is the man who was talking about grabbing them by the pussy, and they put the future Queen of England beside her. It looks quite flirtatious, shall I say, Phil?
It's actually an insult to all of us. These parasites, that's what both of them are. And all these billionaires, they're flaunting their impunity in our faces. And unless we unify, because a united people is the only thing, this is what socialism's about, this is what community is about, this is the only thing that will get Coatbridge back on its feet, and the rest of Scotland for that matter, is to not ignore these parasites, watch them, see what they do and call them out for what they are. Stop supporting them financially. Any of these organisations, we're talking about BlackRock, the banks, the banking system is corrupt to the core. Military-industrial complex. Do we need defence? Yes, but it should be defence, not offence, and not the persecution of innocent people for for what effectively is military Keynesianism. It's an eternal war for the sake of profit. These are the people who we can laugh and we can joke, but the smugness of these gets, you get that, you've got Trump there and Prince Andrew pretending not to know each other on this trip. You know, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. This is a paedophile. There are paedophiles. And this will not go away. Thankfully, there was a turn. We talked about Charlie Kirk. You talk about the MAGA movement that put Trump in place. There's some Christians there, some decent, well-thinking people in the MAGA group who want to see, they cannot couch paedophilia. And therefore, when this comes out, as I pray it does, then I want to see justice. And I don't want to see false justice. I want to see, we need to go over this. We need to go over the pettiness. We need to man and woman up, unite to a common cause and remove all obstacles. Currently the SNP and anyone else that gets in our way.
Yeah. The clock's beating us. I'm going to a couple of things. One, Trump in town, but also it was important this week, Lloyd, was that for the 43rd time, the United States alone vetoed a plan for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all hostages on both sides, I would imagine, because there's 12,000 now in possession in Israeli prison camps. But again, the Americans blocked it.
Yes. What can you say, Roddy? I mean,
I don't know what to say.
You could have predicted it. Of course, you could predict it, most especially when Trump's in charge, because Trump effectively is a man who is trapped by the knowledge that blackmails him from Tel Aviv. America. I think the most frightening thing about all of this is the fact that the most powerful or the most militarily powerful country in the world can be held to ransom on the basis of the peccadillos of its president, held to ransom by a small nation that plunders it for billions of dollars every year, but at the same time is completely held to ransom by that country because of the misbehavior of the individual on Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's not going to change. It really isn't. And that's, for me, that's the true horror, is knowing that until Trump is no longer president, then Israel effectively has got a free pass at the United Nations. And the United Nations now has to work on the basis of General Assembly motions and reject the Security Council. If nothing else, maybe the silver lining to all of this will be that proper reform of the Security Council of the United Nations will happen subsequent to the horrors that's happened in Gaza. And of course, we, Scotland, could play a very serious part in reforming the Security Council of the United Nations. When Scotland becomes independent, the remaining United Kingdom will find it very hard to argue that it can maintain its permanent position on the Security Council of the United Nations. So if for nothing else, those of you who want to see justice for the Palestinian people and justice across the world and a United Nations that does what it originally was formed to do, then supporting Scottish independence is one of the quicker ways that you can create that reform in the United Nations that's desperately needed for the people of the world.
Yeah, because they hide behind it, because there's Sisi, who's America's man, the president of Egypt, said, we will go into Gaza and protect the Palestinians when there's a UN resolution, knowing full well that UN resolution will never see the light of day. And the Qatar's doing something similar, all the same, because they know the Americans will veto everything. Yep. But the last thing, and I wanted to get in today, Alan, was your party, which is not quite a party yet either. They are going to have a nationwide tour, Alan, and it is stretching, you'll notice here, a nationwide tour from Newport to Newcastle. Thank you, our friend Craig Murray, for giving us this one. Newport to Newcastle. I think they missed something here. What do you think?
It's a long way, you know. I mean, there are bikers, aren't they? They like their cycle bikes, so it'll take them a wee while to get around there. But my God, I mean, they're not even a party, a registered party yet. And yeah, they are. I mean, this is typical of the left. Why fight with anyone else if your pal's just beside you? Just lay lumps into them. I mean, you've got Corbyn now threatening to take Sultana to court because she's breached data protection using the internal membership or the internal supports list, because they've not got members yet, to try and get them signed up as members. And they continuously say they've got, 600,000 members? But they've not. They've got 600,000 supporters who will soon whittle down when they've got to put their money where their mouth is. And that's why Corbyn doesn't really want the membership now, because he will lose quite a lot of that. But my God, it's typical of the left. These people cannot agree with themselves, never mind the people. And that's where Liberate Scotland has the advantage, because we do not have a whip system. We are a coalition of independent-minded people fighting for the independence of our country. And that is all you need to know about Liberate Scotland. We are united for one cause and one cause only, and that is the liberation of Scotland.
And that is absolutely true. And the leader of has bought a new camper van, we should just show you. Anything the SNP do, Liberate Scotland can top that. And on that note, a happy note and a laugh. Yeah, you can't have a laugh as well, folks. What's the point of sitting here on a Sunday at noon? Until we see you and yours, please, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.